that was a reminder from last week. Well, this week, and all month long, it's really about, and every Sunday is really about, how are we expressing God's love? How are we living God's light? And how are we knowing God's truth? That's really what we come on Sundays for, is to really anchor ourselves to these ideas. And so about expressing God's love and putting a little love in our heart, what is it that keeps us frequently from expressing God's love? And the answer is simple, really. Other people. Right? If other people would just do what we want them to do, if they would just behave how we want them to behave, if they would just think how we want them to think, if they would just not bother us in ways that we don't want to be bothered, if they would just respect us in the ways that we want to be respected, and treat us in the ways we want to be treated, regardless of how we might treat them, if they would just do what we want them to do, well, it would be so much easier than to express God's love, wouldn't it? But they somehow get in our way. And what is that? Is that we have ideas. We have perceptions about right or wrong, good or bad, should and shouldn'ts. And it really is not, of course, clearly any other person that gets in the way of expressing God's love, but it's our own ideas. It's our own ideas and our perceptions and our perspective that allows us to rise up, sometimes in anger, sometimes in judgment, always looking at the other person and making them a cause for why it is that we can't be happy. Mrs. Toploff was speaking to her friend one day, Mrs. Weinstein, and she's complaining about her new daughter-in-law. And she says to Mrs. Weinstein, she says, my daughter-in-law is a leech. She's a leech, my poor son. He's married to a leech of a woman. She stays in bed late every morning. He has to spend all of his hard-earned money to buy her very expensive gifts that she's demanding. She doesn't lift a finger, not a finger, to clean the house. And she is so lazy, that my son, my wonderful son, has to bring her breakfast in bed every morning. Oh, well, Mrs. Weinstein concurs completely. Oh, a gem of a daughter-in-law, she is not. So they start talking a little bit more about her. All of a sudden, Mrs. Weinstein says, so Mabel, tell me about your daughter. How's your daughter doing? And Mrs. Toploff says, oh, my daughter, she's married. She has it made. She's married to a prince of a man. He hires maids so that she doesn't have to lift a finger. She doesn't have to cook or clean. He allows her the beauty and the privilege to sleep in every morning, and he buys her anything she wants. And she has a husband who loves her so much, who dotes on her so much, he brings her breakfast in bed every morning. And they both concur that she definitely has it made. So what is it? Her daughter-in-law is a leech, but her daughter is a princess, right? It's perspective. It is our perspective of the same situation, and we can view it in two different ways, can't we? We can take any situation and view it in two different ways. And what happens is that when we end up getting into judgment sometimes, or when we get angry at someone, a lot of times, many times, it is because we have had a perception, we've had a judgment that somebody is not doing something the way that we want them to do. So Dr. Ernest Holmes writes this. Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, says, it is people that make people unhappy. It's not spiritual principle that makes people unhappy. Those who have made up their minds to be happy will stay unhappy until they make up their minds to be happy. As long as we give any other living soul the power to make us unhappy just so long will we be unhappy. Why? Because we pass our whole mental perspective and inner knowledge of life over to the other person. We might say that we're giving our power away. That might be a way that we talk about it, and I would argue that we never really can give our power away. It just looks like we're giving our power away in that we are not taking it ourselves. Is that we are allowing someone else to make us unhappy. We are allowing our perception of an activity, our perception of a behavior, our perspective of somebody else, our external focus, to allow our own selves to step into an idea of being unhappy or being angry. And so we can choose, always choose, to take another way. So it's very nice of Dr. Ernest Holmes, these words are very good, that, it's only so long as we give our power away to someone else, as we focus on someone else, are we going to basically be at the mercy of someone else. Good words, but they fall short a little bit of telling us exactly how to do that. And so as we know, we provide spiritual tools here that will change our lives, that will inspire transformation. And so I'm going to give us a couple of spiritual tools today. So the first one is we need to be open to another way. And it really is our perception. So if you want to know how we're thinking, we've known this. Take a look around at your life. Whatever you see, that's your belief. So that's fine and that's well and good. But then if I go one step further and say to you, how's life? You can say life is great, like Mrs. Toplov. You could say life is great. I have the wonderful fill in the blanks. I'm the daughter. I have this wonderful husband. I have it made. The universe always supports my needs. I have ample opportunities to do anything that I want. I have an abundance of time. My body is healthy and vital and alive. I'm pursuing my passion. I know what my dreams are and my goals are. Life is great. You could ask conversely, so that's focusing, like I said last week, on the 90% of our life that's good. Or I can ask you in the morning, how's life? And you could say, well, could be better. How's life? Fair to middling. How's life? Just waiting until the end of the week for my payday. How's life? Living for the weekend. How's life? Well, I have this headache, and my sciatic is working up a little bit. And, I've been calling around to go on that vacation, but there's just no hotel availabilities. And the hotels are so expensive. And I can't quite get the right rental car that I want. And then I never seem to have, I'm lonely, and nobody invites me to lunch. And we could go on. And this could be the same person. But what is our focus when we ask, how's life? There's always another way to look at things. But what happens is we have our own perspective, and we forget that there's another way. There's a story in the Bible about a man named Naaman, and he was the chief military officer for a king who had leprosy. And so Naaman was sent to go far to talk to the prophet Elisha, so that this prophet would have the cure for this king of his leprosy. So Naaman goes as he's directed, and he travels a long way, and he finally comes up to the prophet, and he wants to ask this question. But what happens instead of him meeting the prophet directly? A servant of the prophet comes to greet him. Well, Naaman doesn't not really like this, but he tells them what the problem is, and the servant, this is such a simple problem for the servant, the servant says, oh, well, this is such a simple problem. To be healed of the leprosy, all you have to do is allow the healing power of the River Jordan to take over. And so you need to just submerge yourself in the River Jordan 7 times, and you will be healed of the leprosy. Now, instead of being happy for this advice, for the answer to the problem of which the king had sent him, instead of being happy about it, Naaman was very upset. Because he felt slighted. He felt jilted. He felt not respected and honored for his status in life, being the chief military officer for a king, that a mere servant would come and greet him and not the prophet himself. And not only that, but he was also insulted that the answer to the prayers, the answer to the problem, was something so easy. And so that's how it is sometimes with us. We have an idea. We have an idea, a perception, an opinion that we're married to, that we're attached to. We want to find answers, perhaps. Maybe we are struggling with something, and we want to find some answers. But the answers don't come to us in the way that we're thinking they should come. And so we don't hear it. We're not open to knowing that there's another way. There's another way for us to experience our good. There's another way when we're asking for wisdom and guidance for it to come. I used to tell this story over and over and over. It's so true. I used to always think, for some reason, that my financial good, some new financial good, is going to come in the mail. It never came in the mail. Every day, I would go to the mailbox, hoping this could be the day. I don't know what I was thinking. Publishers Clearinghouse would just send me a check. But who knows how much good I was turning away from because I had an opinion about how this good had to come to me. I wasn't open to seeing another way. And not only that, but sometimes we want the answers to be complex. We don't want this little simple, oh, all you have to do is this, X, done. Well, why didn't I think of that before? You know, we think if we haven't, we've not accomplished something, we've not gotten through to our goals, we're experiencing a challenge, we're looking for an answer, whatever it is that we're requesting, that we're seeking, that if we haven't found it yet, it's because it has to be complicated. That if it was simple, we would have found it, we would have discovered it. So what ends up happening for many of us, we're professional seekers. We're seeking the truth. We're seeking our dreams. We're seeking our goals. We're seeking financial prosperity. We're seeking our soulmate. We're seeking opportunities. We're seeking peace. We're seeking enlightenment. We're seeking more self-respect. We're seeking transformation. We're seeking a whole mess of things, but we're never seeming to find. And maybe we're not finding because we're looking for the complicated answer. So when we want to take back, let's say, our power and not allow external people to make us unhappy, let's think that there could be another way. Let's find the answer. So that's step number one. And step number two is to remember love. So Put a Little Love in Our Heart was a perfect song. So there's things that not only remember love, remember that we are loved. Remember that we are loving. Remember that we are lovable. Just remember that all around us is love. So we can remember, first of all, to give love. And sometimes just the very fact that we're acting in a loving way will increase that love essence around us. It will help us remember, oh yeah, we really are loved. It's kind of like priming the pump. Even if we don't feel like it, we can act. We can remember to act in a loving way. We can do that. Princess Diana once wrote this. She said this. I think the biggest disease this world suffers from in this day and age is the disease of people feeling unloved. And I know that I can give love for a minute, or for a half an hour, or for a day, or for a month. But I can give, and I'm very happy to do that, and I want to do that. But sometimes we don't feel particularly loving. We don't feel like we're able to give love. And so, but we can still remember love. Then we can remember that we are loved. And how might we do that? Call somebody who you know loves you. Call someone who you know loves you, even if you're having a hissy fit. that they love you unconditionally, that they see beyond whatever it is, what garbage you might be spewing out on the moment, and call them and have them remind you that you are loved, that you are worthy of love, and that you are loved. And let them shower you with those ideas and reach out to them when we have forgotten. And then also remember that we are lovable, that our very nature is love, because there is only one thing, and that one thing is God. And that one thing is love. And that one thing is you and me and everyone else. And we want to not, so getting away from judgment, what happens sometimes we don't feel lovable. We don't feel worthy of love because our perception, our judgment is sometimes directed internal towards us, towards our own selves. It's not always directed towards other people and their behavior. Sometimes it's internally or inward directed. And so we compare ourselves, and therefore sometimes we get to feeling that we're not lovable, we're not as worthy, we're not something as someone else is. And this is really death by comparison. These ideas of judgment and comparison, last week I talked about that the idea of that trance of scarcity robs us and cripples us from really expressing and experiencing who we are and the joy that we are. Well, comparing ourselves to others, judging ourselves as less than, also cripples us and robs us of experiencing God's love, of expressing our own internal and inner light. Now, once there was a samurai who was known, world renowned, the samurai, for his integrity and his bravery, his courage. He had many battles. He fought well. He was very honorable, but one day he went to see a monk. And as he's climbing, the mountain to go see the monk, he happens across this monk, this Zen monk, and he's sitting in meditation. And in that moment, the samurai is overcome with feelings of inferiority, looking at this monk. He doesn't understand why he should feel inferior, but he feels that everything that he did in his life is nothing. Nothing compared to this man that he's seeing in meditation. And this kind of perturbs him, as you could imagine. So as soon as the monk is finished with his meditation, the samurai asked him, he said, you know what, all of a sudden I feel very inferior to you. And I've had many battles, and I've had many wins, and I know that my life has meant something, and it has stood for something, and I have behaved in honorable ways, and that I have nothing to be ashamed of. Yet, when I came up and saw you, I felt inferior. Why? Why is that? And the monk told him to just wait, and that when he was finished seeing everybody for that day, he would meet with him. And so the samurai waited in the gardens, and he watched as everyone came to get advice from the monk, and that monk greeted everyone with kindness, with respect, with reverence. But the samurai was growing weary and a little bit less enthusiastic about meeting with the monk, because after all, he wasn't used to sitting still. He was a man of action. But finally, the last of the people that came to see the monk had left, and the samurai sprung to his feet and said, "Can you tell me now? Can you tell me now?" And so the Zen master brought the samurai in, walked him through his rooms, and they walked to the outside of, on his balcony. And there was a full moon. And the monk said, "See that full moon, how beautiful it is? See how it illuminates the night sky? See how wonderful it is? And it will cross the whole sky. And then it will be replaced by the sun. And the sun, as beautiful as this moon is, and as much as it illuminates, the sun is brighter. And the sun will cast shadows. And the sun, we will be able to see details that we simply cannot see with the moon's light." And the monk said, "And I have been contemplating these two for years and years and years. And I have never once heard the moon say to the sun, 'I feel so inferior.'" And the samurai says, "Well, of course not. They're two different things. You can't compare the sun and the moon. They're two totally different things. And the monk said, yes. And now you know the answer. You can't compare. And so that is our answer as well. We cannot compare our light with anyone else's light. We can't compare our activities with anyone else's activities. We can't compare our perceptions and our ideas with anyone else's perceptions and our ideas, because it would be like comparing the sun and the moon. We are a unique, individualized expression of the one. We need to remember that no matter what it is, that we are the darling of the divine. And if we have a tendency to try to compare ourselves to others and find ourselves lacking, find ourselves in judgment, we need to remember. I would love to remember that sun and the moon story. There's no need. That is faulty thinking. And I got to have this firsthand 2 days ago. So last week, Caitlin, my daughter, was videotaping the talk, as she is today. And I uploaded it to Facebook. Trust me, it was like 9 hours to upload a video of 30 minutes. It's a long time. I had to try it 3 times. I was doing it at work. I wasn't even at work long enough. You know, that amount of time at work. Okay. So instead, perception. So, same activity. I could choose to be so excited that finally we have entered, yet again, slowly by slowly, we are entering the technological age. And I could be excited that this has been something that we wanted to do for quite a while, is to videotape our Sunday talks and put them online, and they could, you know, and to have a reach far beyond the church walls, right? But oh no. Here's where my perception was. OMG, Double Chin City. OMG, nose in the air. Because I do have a tendency, you know, I mean, because I'm short. OMG, my hands are going like crazy. I'm rocking back and forth. How can anybody tolerate watching me in the audience? They must be so distracted because I'm walking. I don't think I'm really rocking. I think I'm stepping. But on a video that you only see this part, it looks like I'm rocking. So I'm trying to stay still, but the hand, do you know what I'm saying? So it's the same activity. But where's my focus? My focus is on, not on, oh, goody goody, but it's a comparison. So I have come to the conclusion, I will have to come to this conclusion, I think, every single week, and I know that eventually it will take, but I don't have to look like everyone else. I don't have to behave like everyone else. I only have to be me. And so my brilliance is not to be compared with anyone else's. That I have my own energy, I have my own essence, I have my own consciousness, I have my own flavor, my own flair, my own delight in storytelling and joke telling, my own unique perspective, as do we all. As do we all. So that when we find ourselves in judgment, perhaps in anger, that's all we need to do is remember these two things, or help us in that there is another idea. And look for that other perspective. If we are really stuck in our own, see if we can't take a step back and look at it a different way. And if we're judging someone else, know that they may have a different opinion. You know what I'm saying? They have a different set of circumstances that brought them to this place. There is more than one. There might even be more than 2 ways to look at a situation. There might even be more than 3 ways. And they would each be valid. It doesn't have to be our way. And then also really move back within to this idea of love, that we're loving, that we're lovable. Because sometimes what happens is that when we get angry, when we get judgmental, when we get fearful, it really, I think, a lot of times is a response. It's just a response because we don't feel loved. We might feel misunderstood. We feel disrespected. We feel less than. We're comparing ourselves to someone else. We're feeling less than, which means, AKA, that we're not feeling loved. It's just a response. So if we can get into that idea that right where we are, the essence of the allness is, that who we are is pure delight, pure pleasure, pure perfection. That it is the essence of the infinite that is operating through us at every single moment in time. We can then move out of this limiting idea, and we can then also take a permanent vacation from judgment. And so it is.
So it is.